Welcome to the Socket podcast. Today, I am so excited to have my friend Katy Lynch on. She is doing something that I would love to do one day. So I knew once I've been kind of following her on Facebook that I wanted to bring her on to discuss kind of the lifestyle that she's living right now. So welcome, Katy.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Can you tell everyone just a little bit about you, your background?
Yeah. So my name is Katy Lynch. I am a serial entrepreneur. I am originally from Edinburgh, Scotland, if you couldn't tell from the accent. But I lived in Chicago for about 13 years, running a few different companies. The business that I've co-founded or I'm currently running now is called Codeverse, which is an award-winning coding program for kids ages 6 to 13. And I am currently, so I'm not in Chicago anymore. As of pretty much last year with the pandemic hitting. So I live on a boat now, a 40-foot catamaran in the Bahamas.
Which, Katy and I have been connected through Codeverse is actually how we became connected. I remember we had a meeting, a lunch at Standard Market. And she was coming to Naperville and she opened up a location downtown Naperville. And I mean, the space was like unbelievable. You walked in, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like you're on a cool, colorful rainbow spaceship or something like
Yep.
that. And so we met because I run the Branch Moms community. So she was one of our partners and we did different things with them and referred some of our members to her business. And it was awesome. And she was boom, 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 right? We were opening up in Boston and New York and somewhere else, I think.
Yep.
Other
Boston,
places.
New York, and Houston.
Okay. And they were just off to the races. And unfortunately, COVID comes and changes a lot of things for a lot of business owners. Can you talk just a little bit about the tough decisions that you had to make as you had headed through that this past year?
Yeah, definitely. So, as we all know, the pandemic struck a year ago, I guess almost a year today, right? Or a year
Oh,
like last
I
week,
know. I
which
don't
is
want to have
mad.
an anniversary for this.
Hey, Cathy, remember when we all thought it was only going to be 30 days long and then we could go back to our lives? Anyway,
I
yeah,
know.
so when the pandemic first struck, we obviously had to make the decision to close down the studios. And at that time, we didn't know that we would be kind of closing them for good.
Yeah.
So, we kind of temporarily closed them down and completely pivoted our business to virtual. So all the lessons that we do for children are all done through like one-on-one classes
Okay.
online. And, as the pandemic continued, I mean, that was the really hard decision of like, okay, we're losing money keeping these studios open.
Yeah.
Our customer base now is completely on this online platform. And, the online platform allowed us to even expand outside of where we were, right, in Chicago. And so, it was tricky. And I think the hardest thing was, Craig and I poured so much of our heart and tears and everything into building the 3 studios, Cathy, that you saw in Chicago.
Yeah.
And so it was heartbreaking for us. That was our baby. So it was like closing our baby. But the silver lining, as I said before, is we managed to pivot, right? We were
Yeah.
we were one of the lucky ones that managed to, pull all of our customers online and basically recreate the studio experience virtually.
And that is something that as an entrepreneur, I guess I'm getting closer considering myself a serial entrepreneur. So I'm joining that club, I think. I love creating businesses. I think of something, I'm like, ooh, that could be a business. So my brain just is wired that way. I talk about business all day long. But anyway, so I know how you feel because I had something called Cafe and Play. I've talked about this before on the Socket podcast, where
Yeah.
I opened up this playtown and coffee shop for kids. The coffee was my sister's Kind Coffee brand out of Estes Park, Colorado. And we branded the different kinds of coffee based on our little playtown. So we had like a train station and a princess clubhouse or a pirate clubhouse and a princess castle and a home and little kids could go in there and we'd slides and dress up clothes and oh my gosh. And just like you, like I went to Sherman-Williams and picked out the 5 main colors. And I decided which wall those colors were on. And I, brought in my graphic designer and created this beautiful logo. And it was just every ounce of that space I picked out, or at least, had help in picking out, but I was an integral part of it. And we ended up having to close 3 years later. And it was like both heartbreaking, but for me, the pivot for me was it kind of launched the branch out of it, because we had so
Mhm.
many families that came to our space. It was now I kind of had to go online, right? I had to kind of take all those connections that were in person, put them online for a totally different reason than you did. But I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing right now. And the branch is pretty much my full-time job. So I don't think I would be
Yeah,
doing that if that had not happened. Because all of a sudden I had
yeah,
energy that freed up for me to put it into another, another direction. So, you know, there's so many losses in business, but then you turn around and you're like, wow, like look what I created out of that really tough time.
yeah, absolutely. I love that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no, I know some of our listeners have businesses, and I know a few of them have had to close or close organizations, and it's just this past
I
year has
know.
been really, really rough. So I'm a big, as I told you, I'm a big fan of speaking truth into reality, like the reality of what it's like to be a business owner or to run an organization. And it's not always sunshine and rainbows. But
I know. I completely agree.
speaking of sunshine and rainbows, your view includes sunshine and rainbows a lot more than Chicagoland in the winter. So first, I would love for you to share about this YouTube show that inspired you and Craig to buy a sailboat. So I'd love to hear about that, and then maybe just give us a little cliff notes of your journey and where you are now.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll start by saying that Craig and I have always been into boating. Prior to, well, this sailboat that we bought 3 years ago, we had 2 small power boats in Chicago, not at the same time, at separate times, but we had 2 small power boats and we just loved it. We loved just being on the water. We loved how social boating is, right? It's amazing being out with all your friends and, on Lake Michigan and all that. But it's funny because about 3.5 years ago, we were on YouTube and we were just looking up travel videos. Craig and I are also really into travel. In fact, that's how Craig and I initially met, was I
Really?
worked. Yeah, this was a very long time ago, like 11 years ago or so, but I worked at Craig's travel startup
Oh my goodness.
back in the day. And so, we're both just so into traveling. And so we started watching this YouTube series, which is about a Australian couple. Their names are Elena and Riley, and the sailing channel, it's called Sailing La Vagabond is the name of it. And so we started watching a few episodes and instantly we were inspired by their story. I mean, here's 2 folks they must be in like their mid to late 20s, just sailing all around the
Wow.
world. And about 2 years ago, they had a baby. And now they're traveling all around the world with the baby, funnily enough. And so I don't know what it was, but just something inside of Craig and I just lit up. It was like a spark. And we just felt like we were being called. As silly as that sounds, we kind of felt like we were being
No,
called to do this lifestyle. And so long story short, we kind of spontaneously booked a flight to Maryland to attend the Annapolis Boat Show, which is like this annual boat show where all kinds of people from all over the world attend and look at power boats and sailboats. And so that's what Craig and I did. And then shortly after that, we went to Miami to go look at sailboats again and basically found Supernova, which is that's her name,
yeah,
Supernova.
yeah.
She's a 40-foot Nautic open 40 catamaran. And Craig and I are just in love with her. She's brilliant.
Uh,
She's brought us so much adventure and joy during such a uncertain and weird time,
yeah, yeah. So I I just love being out on the water. Like I put on my Caribbean blue shirt for you. Cause I'm like, all right, cause that's every picture that you post. I'm like, damn it, I need to be there. It's just, it's so breathtaking. And for me, and I'm sure you feel something similar to this, connecting to the ocean, and for me specifically the Caribbean water, that blue water. um, I don't know. I feel like I called myself a dolphin mermaid on one of my other podcasts. Like I feel like I just was birthed out of that water, and that's where I want to be, and that's where I feel like I can be the healthiest version of myself, and outdoors and plugged into nature. And I just feel as if, I mean, I love my life in Naperville. I really, really do. But I crave to have more of that connection to the ocean. So what has that
Yeah.
felt like to you? I know you said you've had the boat for Supernova for 3 years, but that you've been mostly on it, primarily on it during this past year, or at least some version of that. How does your
That's
soul
correct.
feel? How does your body feel? How does, I don't know, it just feels magnificent to me.
Yeah. Honestly, Cathy, it's life-changing. I mean, you know, talking about like speaking your truth right now, I felt like when I was living in Chicago, and this is not a knock on Chicago because I absolutely love the city. I think the people are incredible, the architecture, the foodie scene, everything is brilliant. But I definitely felt like I was missing that connection to nature,
Yeah,
100%. So,
yeah,
you sit here and you talk right now about the Caribbean water and how that brings you to life. That is exactly how I feel when I'm either out here or surrounded by mountains.
mm,
And so it has just been so life-changing for me being out here. Craig and I just feel we feel more connected to people, we feel more connected to nature. I'd say that we're more creative in our jobs,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because everything that we look at is inspiring, right? The sunsets are inspiring, the sunrises are inspiring, the water, the ocean life. It could be the littlest things, the palm trees swaying in the wind. I mean, it's just unbelievable how much being connected to nature affects your overall well-being and your mental health.
Yeah. The tagline for Socket is plug into you, but I use plug into nature as a hashtag all the time. If I'm out, taking a walk down by the river, or just see like a bird, or something, I try to really be intentional about, I need to pay attention to this. Like it's
Yeah.
all around us, right? When that moon is half full, and it's so bright, it feels like you could pluck it out of the sky. Pay attention. Stop what you're doing and look at it. It's like
Yep.
the universe has a show for us 24 hours a day. And depending on where we are and what we're doing, that show changes. And oh my God, that just gives me the chills. And
I know.
I feel sad. It makes me feel sad when I see people that are head down, or on a computer, or kind of trudging through life, and maybe holding on to anger, resentments, struggles that they could release if they had the tools to do so, or if they were willing to take a couple risks in their lives.
100%.
I want to shake them. You
I
don't have
know.
to do this anymore. You don't have to do this. I had a patient of mine who's probably 50 years old, and he had this super high paying job, super stressful, and he hated it. And it was making him physically ill. And after seeing him a few times, I just looked at him. I said, why don't you quit your job? And I've talked about this a couple times too. And he just was like, oh, I can't. We have this big expensive house, but you could sell the house. You could move. You could move on a sailboat. That's what you could do. But anyway,
Yeah.
I really get passionate about people living life as opposed to just
Yeah.
getting through it. Um,
Yeah. It's really interesting because I feel like one thing that you've touched upon, or the biggest thing that you've touched upon here, really is self-awareness and mindfulness,
yeah.
right? And I
Yep.
think that for me, I had to kind of pay attention to the signs of my body and like what my body was telling me, right? Because I felt like my soul was being fed with Codeverse because I was doing what I wanted to do, but I felt like my body was just tired and haggard, and I felt uninspired kind of in my personal life. And again, it goes back to what I was saying before about I didn't realize how much I needed to have more nature in my life, right? I didn't realize how much I needed to be outside and spend more time outdoors and connecting with, you know, the community and like people around me. And that is what this lifestyle has provided me. That is what sailing provides, is again, that connection to community, connection to nature, connection to you and your soul, and kind of what feeds you and what feeds your body.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about this before we came on, but I see another chunk of people at my practice that say, and I've been in practice for 23 years now. So some of these people I've tracked for 20 years, you know, not tracked, but seen for 20 years. And they're like, when I retire, when I retire, when I retire, when I retire, I'll do this. I will travel. I will go on vacation. I will read books. I will, right? They always have all these things that they want to do. Not everyone, but I see a number of people that, and it's when I retire. And I always try to challenge them a little bit, like, why don't you take a weekend and go do something? But they're so worried about saving up money to be able to retire. Well, quite frankly, I've had a few of those people that have passed away within a year of retiring.
Wow.
And they retired and 4 months later found out they had some format of stage 4 cancer. Now, I know that's not everyone, right? And I also know that we're speaking about the opportunity to live in a way that does include a retirement, right? Lots of people don't have the finances to do that. Lots of people live in a totally different way than I'm able to, or you're able to. So I always try to make sure we're making mention that we're very, very fortunate. We've worked hard to be fortunate, but we are very, very fortunate.
Right.
So I just love that you're also doing something that feeds your soul now, not when you're 60, not when you're 70, while you're completely able-bodied, right? You're completely free to do whatever you want. You have the energy, you have the spunk, you know, and so I just give you a huge, huge hats off for kind of taking a new version of life when it's been a really hard year. You know, it's been a really hard year for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
What have you found is other than plugging into nature, because we know that's it. What's the other best thing about what you've done?
Honestly, I think one of the best things that's like happened to me personally is I felt more connected to my team, which is like funny to say that, right? Because it's like I'd share an office with them physically every single day. And I was connected to them in the sense that I'm in the same room as them, right? And we're like,
right?
You know, chat, small talk, big talk, all that. But it's really interesting how the pandemic has almost brought us all together even more and has made us stronger as a unit. You know, I mean, I say this to Craig all the time, that I consider our team family at this point. You know, the bond was so incredibly strong. And I think it's because we've all gone through this together, right? And it's been bloody hard. Like, excuse the language, but it has been effing hard.
You can swear on here, it's okay. I put not for kids when I load it up on YouTube, so.
Okay. Yeah, but you know, and it's just, and I love that. I love that I feel that great of a connection with the team. I love that they feel that with Craig and I love that in many ways it's allowed us to all be like more creative, right? Like, it's just, so that has been one thing that has been just something that I've learned, like, wow, like, yeah, distance really does make the heart grow fonder, but when you already have those strong foundations built with your team, it's only gotten stronger as a result of like this pandemic happening. So talk about silver linings and like blessings to come out of this. That is definitely one of them.
It's interesting because as you speak into that, I don't think I've ever put words into what I'm about to say, but there have been times that I have been unplugged from my team at my practice. And those times represented really tough times for myself where I wasn't kind of living my best life. I wasn't being as authentic with myself. I maybe wasn't taking care of myself as well. And I
Mhm.
think about the connection I have with them now. And even though I'm only in my practice 5 or 6 hours a week, I go in two, 3 hour shifts at the max right now. But when I'm not there, I'm in communication with a lot of them in different ways, and I try to meet with them, every couple of weeks, take them out to lunch one on one to make sure that I'm being so much more intentional with the time that I have with them and trying to make sure, hey, what's the best version of you? And
Mhm.
how can I help you get to that next best level, next best version? And if that means you outgrow your job at my office, so be it. I want you
Yeah.
to live your life, not life working for me. Now, if your best life is, Cathy, this is the perfect fit, I'm making the money I need to make and it gives me the flexibility and you're an awesome boss, fantastic. But if your dream is to have your own massage practice, let me help you. I'll help you work towards that goal. And I had a employee who worked for me for 10 years that about 2 years ago left and started her own practice. And 6 months prior to her leaving, I looked at her, I said, just call me. I know you're getting close. I know you're getting close. And
Yeah.
I was so proud of her when she did that because she was living what she was supposed to be living into, which is
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you said that, because that's what you want for your employees, right? That's what you want for your team. You want them to grow while they're with you. And if they
yeah,
have passions down the road doing X, Y, and Z, whatever that is, 100%, the
yeah,
founders or the co-founders, CEO, or the leadership team of the company should be 100% supportive of that. Yeah.
yep. People live in fear though, right? So
Mm.
when people have come and said, I think at some point I need to leave, I can't say that I don't have a moment of, oh crap, what am I going to do without them? But that's not how you're supposed to live your life. So I try to, every once in a while, if I think, oh, is someone, maybe thinking of leaving, and Jason will say, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And if that's what's going to happen, that's what's most supposed to happen. So whatever's coming behind it will probably be even better, you know,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
or lead us in a new path or change something that we're doing or take us into a new journey. And that's cool. I like change, actually.
I
I
think
like it.
that's the beauty of life, though, isn't it? Is it like, what's that famous quote? It's like, change is the only constant, right?
Right.
So it's like you have to understand that, like, you're always evolving, things are always changing, right? There's always going to be gains, there's always going to be losses. Like, this is just how life is. And
Yeah.
so when you embrace that attitude, life becomes a lot better, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, for sure. So, all right. So those are some of the like awesome parts about it. What's the most
Yeah.
challenging part about it?
Um, well, for me personally, the thing that I really struggle with is not, well, with the pandemic, like not being able to see family.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as amazing as boat life is, living out here, it can get isolating sometimes, right? Like, I'm not near my friends back in Chicago or elsewhere in the States. Again, I'm not near family. My dad lives in Connecticut. The rest of my entire family are all back in the UK. And so, I'm used to seeing them at least a few times a year.
Yeah.
And that, obviously hasn't been the case. Even before the pandemic, I wasn't seeing them that much because I was spending most of my time here out on the boat, traveling with Craig. And so that has been a challenge for me,
Yeah.
and there's been days where I've, been really tearful about it, but then, I just have to keep picking myself back up and saying, it's okay, everyone is fine, your friends are fine, your family's fine, everyone still loves you, you
Right.
still love them, it's just, this is part of what it means to be a sailor and living on the water, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to be near people all the time, and that's the sacrifice that you make being out here.
Well, and I think that's just part of life, right? Every choice you make comes with some really awesome things and some things you're like, all right, I got to manage through that. There's nothing that gives
Yeah,
you everything that you need with zero sacrifice or zero consequence that isn't your favorite, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's why it's so funny. Like when when I'm posting things on social media about my life out here and like working remotely out here. And I get messages, sometimes like private messages, like, oh, you live the dream life, like, like your life must be perfect and blah blah blah. And it's like, hilariously, like the boating life comes with its own set of challenges, right, and difficulties.
Yeah.
And some of them I'm happy to talk about. Some of them, when I'm in the moment, like I don't want to talk about them,
Right.
And so it just all I'm trying to say is everything, the grass is always greener on the other side. Nothing is perfect, even being out here, there's always disasters and many challenges, but you make the most of it, right?
Yeah.
You make
Yeah.
the most of it.
So I have to say, I get a little seasick on boats. Now, do
All
you have a
right.
catamaran, right? Where it's
Yeah.
the two holes?
Yep,
So is
we
that
sure
more
do. So it's a
stable?
bit more, it is, I mean, it's certainly more I guess stable than a monohull, right? Because you're not like kind of ferociously rocking back and forth. And when you're under sail, you're not necessarily leaning, right? You're not at a
Okay.
tilt. On a
Okay.
catamaran, it's even keel.
Yeah.
And but I will say, we do get into choppy waters. Like sailing from Miami to the Bahamas the first time we did it to Bimini, it was pretty choppy.
Yeah.
And Craig and I feel seasick every now and then, but we do wear those wristbands and they
Yep.
do work. So for anyone that thinks that those wristbands don't work, they totally do. And we wear them
Awesome.
on like both wrists and they're brilliant.
Good. Oh, good. All right. Well, I now I have a little more hope. I'm like, Jason's like, I could totally live on a boat. I was like, oh, like live on a boat. I mean, I love what you're doing, but for me, the thought, I mean, you take the dizziness or not dizziness, but the
Yeah.
seasick out of it, and I could do it all day long. But I think I would just have to get out there and see what it felt like.
Well, you know what? My advice to you then would be, so right before Craig and I bought Supernova,
Yep.
we went on Intrepid Travel, which is this
Okay.
awesome travel website, and you can do like charter boats. And so we did a charter catamaran
Yeah.
on like a 45-foot cat all around the Abacos Islands in the Bahamas for like 8 days. And it was absolutely brilliant. And it gives you like a
Nice.
nice taster of what life out at sea is really like.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how did you learn to sail it? Is there a training course? I mean, have you always
So
been sailors? I know you said you have power boats, but
no, so we basically learned by ourselves in true entrepreneur fashion, just kind of dove
you
right
YouTubed
there.
it?
No, but we really did. Well, it's kind of a funny story. So I first learned how to sail when I was much younger, when I was in my teens. I
Okay.
was part of like a sailing club, but that was on a monohull and it was on a really old boat. And so a lot of what I did back then didn't really apply to what's on this boat right now, because this boat is like, it's really modern, it's super techy. I mean, it has autopilot for God's sakes. It's awesome. Um, and so I had to relearn everything, and Craig was learning from the very beginning. So yeah, we were self-taught. And so how we did it was we spent like 3 or 4 months learning in the kind of the bay in like in the Biscayne Bay area in Miami, and kind of
Yep.
took it up Fort Lauderdale and all that. And then we decided to take it over to the Bahamas shortly after that.
Were you
So
scared?
there's a lot of sailors out there that wouldn't recommend that. They'd be like, you need your captain's license, you need training, you need this and that. But actually, you'll find that there's a lot of sailors out there that also just learned on the go, and it's not
Yeah.
that big of a deal.
It's so funny. And there's other things in life where it's amazing to me how many people learn self teach themselves. My friend made I don't know, she knitted something
Yeah.
and it was amazing. I'm like, how'd you learn how to do that? I just learned it on YouTube. You learned how to knit yourself a sweater on YouTube and it fits you? Like, wow, that's awesome, right? Or they did some sort of woodworking thing. I'm always amazed at people that can create something with their hands, or learn something that not many people know. But it is amazing how much information is out there that you have access to just by having Wi-Fi and a
Yeah.
computer.
Yep. And hey, I'll say, what better time to learn a new skill
Yeah.
like woodworking or like sailing than now,
Yeah.
during a pandemic. Like now is the time to discover the things that you're really interested in or passionate about or hobbies that you want to take up, you
Yep.
know?
Yeah. Well, speaking of hobbies, which I don't know if you consider coding a hobby, how, if people are listening and they're like, my kid needs to sign up for Codeverse online, where are they finding you at?
Yeah, so I mean, the best place to go is really just our website, codeverse.com. If your kid's never coded before, that's cool. If your kid has years of experience coding, that's also cool. The program's tailored to all different, levels, and it's for kids between the ages of 6 and 13.
Oh, well, that's just awesome. I'm so glad you've been able to shift to online. And then,
Yeah.
like you said, that doesn't close in the parameters of who's coming to see you, right? That opens it up to the world. And if you're going to get
100%.
2 billion kids to code, you might as well open it up to the world, right?
Yeah, that is correct.
I've been paying attention to you.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, Katy, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for sharing your journey and for the unbelievably gorgeous pictures that you post, because I just cheer you on from afar and know that someday maybe I'll wave to you, as we cross paths.
That's my goal. That's my goal within the next 5 years, is to
Yeah.
get you up here on a catamaran and we'll anchor next to each other and talk about this moment in time. We will talk about this and how we did this years ago.
All right, what day is
amazing.
it? It's 3/16. All right, March 16th of 2026. There you go.
Yeah, done.
All right, that's awesome. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you again for coming on and sharing your story. And I hope that this next rest of the year brings adventure and joy and a lot of love.
It sure will. Take care.
Thanks. Bye, Katy.
Bye for now.
Bye.